Hi, Ankit. Good evening, and thanks for joining in on Sunday evening.
Yeah, hey, Amit. Yeah, so pleasure to meet you, and yeah, same here.
Awesome, awesome. Ankit, I think it was quite some time. We had a word, and we thought to connect and just to have a conversation around how the world of data, AI, is evolving, and I mostly am interested from the perspective of how should people upskill themselves, especially in today's situation. If you see, when generating code is becoming cheaper and cheaper by the day, treating code or the ability of writing code is no longer a defining edge to developers who knew how to write all this cryptic code, and they were supposed to be the intelligent amongst everyone, and that's where they were. That was the currency, basically. Knowing to code has always been a currency, but now you see that currency getting devalued because GenAI is generating code so fast, and anybody who can think properly, think logically, think systemically, should be able to create something, at least prototype something, is what we are seeing everywhere. And at the same time, because this entire technology evolving on the data side, uh, how do the other roles in a data team? So when say, for example, in my company, what we do is that we work with a lot of corporates to help upskill their data teams, and data teams would comprise of many different people. So, for example, I see that you started your career way back, and it was mostly an engineer, a sort of an associate who would know maybe some SQL, maybe would be able to do some ETL, maybe you would be interacting with, say, Oracle systems, database systems, data warehouse systems, or SAP systems. These are back in the days 2005 is what I see in a LinkedIn persona, and you evolved from there. You became senior engineer, and then you became architect. You also switched many different domains. You spent time in a logistics company like Mastech. You spent time in a bank like RBS. You did something very different with Sita. You were architect
Yeah,
there, and you are at NatWest. And I what I hear is that you also have you're heavily into quantitative investing, if I'm using the word right. And so it's a very, very diverse persona is what I see of yours, Ankit. And I want to first of all understand your journey all throughout these years, because you have lived the times where it was so sort of the the early Google era, I would say, then the social media era, and then the AI era. So you have seen both the past, and you are also seeing the future. So I first wanted to like get more in depth into your experience, your journey so far, and would also like to know from you that how are you seeing this change impacting positively or negatively, and where should anybody, right, willing to either enter this domain of data AI or wants to upskill himself or herself to kind of do something new, what should people do? I think it's very uncertain but very open also. So over to you, Ankit.
yeah. Okay, so thanks for the interaction and giving me this opportunity, Amit. Um, so yeah, I mean yeah, and thanks for researching about me and reading about me. So yeah, I started my career in 2005, and I was certified in .NET actually, because
Hmm.
I was allotted .NET. I was in Paro Systems then, and
Right.
so the first project that I got was on Visual Basics plus Miracle, and
Hmm.
so front end plus back end. But um, I liked SQL, and I remember we used to work on an application which was a kind of rating system where we are getting operational system data, and then we are rating the client based on their previous claims and all.
Hmm.
So uh, so that looked this interesting to me, and the good thing about what I felt about SQL and data was that everything was quite logical and I was able to connect the dots. While
Hmm.
in front end, I mean, it depends a lot on the user. A lot of subjectivity is involved. But
True.
I mean, if you are modeling a data or maybe designing a table, you will follow a proper process after understanding the requirement, and there are it is quite streamlined. So I was biased from that angle.
Right.
I worked for, I mean, SQL and PLSQL for around 2 3 years. Then I moved to Mastech, and in Mastech, basically I was working on client side with Apollo Munich
Hmm.
Health Insurance. So
Yeah.
we built their system from ground up,
Hmm.
and mainly it was operational.
Hmm.
So from underwriting to premium calculation to providing the operational data to finance and all. So I was involved in all those activities, and there was a problem there that I mean we sold them a kind of operational product, but they didn't have any analytics there.
Hmm.
So the CTO used to ask me for the reports on weekly, monthly, and quarterly basis. And when every department needed a different kind of reports, so it became quite overwhelming.
Hmm.
I mean, earlier there were isolated reports, and there were too many queries and all. Then I
Right.
learned about data warehousing and how the reporting things are managed in a
Hmm.
streamlined way. And I learned about facts and dimensions and how we can serve with a single data warehouse different departments. Same operational data is just that converting into the from ERD to star schema and then serving different
Right.
departments. So that was quite a learning experience. I could see it's like how the data moves in an organization from
Hmm.
operational to analytical system and all.
Right.
Then I moved to RPS. There I worked as a
Hmm.
software designer, and um, there also, I mean, mainly I was responsible for operational system, but we downstream was analytical system. We used to provide different kind of data. It's just that in Mastech, our tech stack was not that huge. We used to do everything in Oracle and SQL Server, and things
Hmm.
were pretty simple.
Hmm.
But um, bank was vast, and different tech stacks were used there. So different tech stack for operational data there.
Right.
And yeah, for analytics, there were different tech stacks. So I learned all those tools, which like from Oracle. Then I learned Informatica, Teradata, OBI was used for dashboarding and reporting. So that kind of exposure I got, and I wanted to be a data architect. So I remember I prepared a plan around 2010 that in next 5 years I want to be a data architect,
Hmm.
right? And things were going fine, but I mean, um, in the process, I also learned about, like, in 2012, I read about an article that data scientist would be the sexiest job of the
Hmm.
century and all.
Hmm. Hmm.
So then I thought I work everything in data, right? So what is this data scientist that I don't know? Then I got to know, okay, this is something similar to data mining, which I was a bit aware of because I was working in analytics. And that's how my journey started. So there were not so many resources that time. Uh, I started Coursera. It's like there was only one course on machine learning by Andrew Ng on
Yeah.
Coursera,
Yeah.
so I started with that. And then to practice, I didn't have anything. I have to be honest, in my organization to learn. So I got to know Kaggle, that there are some problems there, and so I started solving them. Which started with the standard problems like
Right.
Titanic and housing prices and all,
Right.
and then later I got interested into the competitions.
Right.
So, and luckily I won some competitions there, like one silver, two bronze medals there.
Hmm.
So I became a Kaggle competitions master. So
Right.
that gave me some confidence that okay, I mean I can do something uh, in this area as well. So
Right.
then yeah, I got an opportunity in Genpact.
Hmm.
So there they were starting a digital department, and so I joined their analytics uh, vertical, and then I mean, yeah. worked with various clients. So that's how my data science and machine learning journey started. So and then I joined SITA. There we worked on a very interesting project, which was flight predictor. So we were getting all kind of data from airports to airlines to weather, um, and then no time and all. So and the idea was that to give some prediction about when the flight is going to land, because the airport management system used to you wanted to have that oversight so that
mm,
they can manage the operations better.
mm, mm,
Because at the last minute, if some new information comes in, the gate is changed, and also there is a lot of chaos. So to manage that, they wanted to have. So basically, we worked on flight predictor. It was very interesting project, and I learned a lot there.
mm.
And then I became a principal data scientist in Dibor Nixdorf. So, and then now I am in NetWest. And so over the period of time, I could see that there has been a lot of hype in data science and machine learning. So, and I could also see that I've been an engineer, and data engineering was the emerging field that time. So around 2022, I switched from machine learning to data engineering.
Right.
So yeah, so
Awesome.
that has been my journey.
So that's an amazing journey because again, one thing which stayed constant was the need to learn and keep skilling yourself because I think we all are part of the knowledge economy. So we, in the end, you are earning out of your knowledge, the knowledge which you
Right.
provide, you have the skills which you demonstrate. And throughout the journey, whether you were, say, working in ETL or where maybe you were writing SQL or doing modeling, or today you are architecting systems, in the end what do we see is that there is a business problem being solved, and
Yep.
what takes to solve that problem, for example, a setup will be a very different will require a very different kind of solutioning versus, suppose, as you mentioned, in mastic, which is a very simplified system as such, right? So my next question would be that, as your career evolved in the world of data, when did you actually felt the need that, okay, now it's beyond me as an individual contributor in this project, and what does it take to build, architect this entire system which delivers? For example, I'm basically coming down to the idea of a data platform. Everybody talks about a data platform today. You say Databricks says that, okay, we are a unified data platform. Snowflake says that, okay, we are a platform. Google comes with their own story. Amazon, AWS, everybody comes to with their own story about, okay, we offer the best solution. We offer the best solution. You are, suppose, a principal architect in an organization, and you have joined this organization, and also there is a lot of hype created that, okay, you need to modernize, right? And for that, and because it's cool to be modernized, it's cool to say that, hey, we are the leaders and who want to apply AI and kind of build this entire system which is kind of solving business problem, changing the world. So, but now let's talk to ground reality that when you are actually exposed to such situation, what does it take to build a data platform? How do you think to even design a platform? Tools are for later, but before that, what are some of the thinking principles you bring in picture in order to design a data platform? Let's start with that.
Okay. So when you are a junior engineer, then basically you work on a provided tech stack, and then the problems are well defined. But in design, everything is a trade-off. So basically, if suppose I'm building a data platform ground up, then basically requirement becomes my guiding light. And then from the requirement perspective, I would see what are the options available, and for those options, what are their trade-offs, what they are good at, what they are bad at, and what limitations we can live with, and what are the must-haves or features that we need to have. So based on that, we do a kind of pros and cons or
Hmm.
trade-off analysis, and then take a decision on every component.
Hmm.
Whether and then there are lots of um, decisions that need to be made. Whether we want to keep it on premise, cloud, then
Yeah,
which cloud, and
yeah,
then I mean even in that cloud, if we are using a platform, then which platform. So
yeah, yeah. So if I say try to dig in a little bit in your own span of experience, working in different domains and working across different customers, working on different kind of needs, uh, can you, from your memory, from your experience, quote some of the situations where things didn't go well because of a bad design decision, right? Or things really worked well because of some plan which say you or the team did earlier, and it really pulled off. So if there's anything you could quote, I think that would be an amazing thing.
yeah, so okay, um, let me recall if there is any specific example, but basically what I've seen is that I mean it also depends on which kind of environment you are working in. Maybe like if it's a tightly regulated environment, then you can't change the tech stack um,
Hmm.
overnight, right? And then the tech debt for some or the other reason keep adding
Hmm.
over the period of time.
Hmm.
So and then basically I mean apart from the new projects and delivering the new requirements, reducing or keeping the tech debt in control is also one of the requirement. So
Hmm.
that's how I see it. But if uh, maybe like in BFSI industry, everything is regulated, and then you can't change the components every now and then. But
Right.
maybe for a airline or some other maybe retail uh, clients,
Right.
basically, I mean, they can. So what I've seen is whenever there is a new platform or a tool in the market, then the unregulated, or I would say, I mean, it's not a unregulated industry, but maybe like the financials are not that regulated. So
Right.
they are the ones who would like to try a new thing first. I've seen that, and I've seen that from Oracle days, that Oracle 12G released, and I could see that one of the major retail client was
Yeah.
their first customer to try it out
Right.
because they could afford that, right? A bank
Right.
couldn't actually, right?
Yeah.
So
Yes, and that always matters because so for example, if today we have to say build a modern day say data platform solution, right? So for example, if I look at the very simplest thing, what would it need? So if we have to start thinking, we'd always start with, okay, what is your business, right? What are the business processes? What are your key metrics in which through which, because what is that you want to measure, right? And it could be that, okay, I want to be at the very high level. CEO would like to measure say margin, would like to say customer churn rate, and all those
right.
things. And
Hmm.
then that kind of you start kind of digging it down, making into say sub metrics which spans different departments. Then you have
Right.
to then start thinking about that, okay, if you have to get this done, then I to get some source of truth, right? And then when it comes to data warehouse, there's a whole new story about on-premise versus cloud. And when you have, when say even cloud offers a lot of different solutions that hey you can implement, then very soon cost becomes a problem, right?
Right.
For
Hmm.
example, if I take example of Snowflake or BigQuery, they have made a warehouse implementation very easy. They offer data warehouse as a service solution that you can very quickly spin up everything. But at the same time, for smaller workloads, there's no problem. But the moment the workload increases, right, your then the bill starts killing you, right? So I wanted to understand if you could give a very high level, say, understanding that, okay, if today an organization has to build a data platform, right, what are the different components they should be caring about? If I think from a very simplistic point of view that, okay, I need data source, I need an ATL, I need an outcome, done. Is that enough for a data platform? What else can go wrong? What else should be the decision for an organization or a data team to implement a data platform? Because there will be different people with different skill sets coming in. But my first question would be that what is to be built? Then we will come down to what skills would be required to build it, and finally we'll get down to the people.
Okay, so apart from whether we want to go on premise or cloud, or hybrid, or maybe multi-cloud,
Mm-hmm.
um, we need to take multiple decisions. Like, I mean, if it would be real time or batch, and
Yes.
it would be either we can do away with near real time, or it has to be
Mm,
really real time itself.
mm,
And based on that, we need to take a lot of decisions.
right.
What is the throughput? What is the response rate
Yeah.
for the streaming components?
Right.
So yeah, there are a lot of decisions that we need to take based on. I mean, generally what we do is that we take each factor into account, like these, and then we see, okay, what are our requirements, and what how stringent are our requirements, and then based on what are the components that are available,
Right.
whether like we need Kafka, whether
Mm,
we can use open source, whether we need to use managed Kafka,
mm,
and then otherwise we can maybe do away with some other, maybe Flink or
mm,
maybe structured streaming.
right.
So I mean, yeah, based on the requirement itself, we decide which component to use here,
So if I
and
take
then yeah, whether we have that skill set.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I come into BFSI again, BFSI most secure. I think it requires the most stringent implementation of say security, privacy. So say if it was, as you rightly said, if it is suppose at retail, they are the first ones to try it because they have the least legal security privacy implications, right? Other than keeping the customer data secure, core customer data secure, most of the things are more or less fine. But here, every single data has to be secure, right? So even thinking about moving the data becomes a big question, right? If the data is in your database, in your primary database, one premise of ETL is that okay, you have to move the data, right? So even moving the data at times becomes challenge here because customers would not like to move their data out of their core systems, right? So
Yeah.
what are some of the things you would have seen beyond say an ETL, for example, say privacy or say governance? So, what are some of these solutions which you have seen in being implemented in BFSI, and how is the security and privacy layer taken care of?
Keen, so yeah, in the BFSI domain, the governance is I mean, the major part of it. I mean,
Yeah,
um, so when I see the data ecosystem, then I see basically we build data strategy which is aligned to the business strategy, and
right.
then the data strategy has two levers.
Mm,
One is the data governance, another is the data architecture. So
right.
as I see it, governance is a kind of break, a regulatory thing, and
Mm,
the architecture is basically your accelerator, right?
ah,
So you can also compare it with the top line and the bottom line of an organization.
right.
So generally, the regulations are governed by the regulatory authorities. That
Mm,
these, as per this industry, uh, like we have GDPR and with like other regulations. So they specifically means like point by point decide what are the expectations, what are the requirements that we need to uh, uh, comply with to do the business. Otherwise, maybe there may be fines and all. So,
right.
and this is with every bank and every like
Mm,
insurance company and all.
understood. Got it. So, my next question would be coming down to the people who basically say build these systems, whether it is building the pipelines, ingestion pipelines, or say quality pipelines, or whether it is taking decision about storage, or or implementing batch versus say streaming pipelines, or say implementing security solutions or privacy solutions. How do you see the composition of a data team in a typical setup where you have say these kind of constraints there, like what would be a job of a typical data engineer look like? Do you need a data analyst here? What about business analyst? How about security engineers, right? How about there's a new field coming up, site reliability engineering, that coming up. So wanted to get a quick understanding of how would a typical data team look like in this kind of a setup.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, from startups to the enterprise, the structure of data teams varies a lot.
True.
Mostly you see that in startups, there would be a one-man army, and people maybe wearing different hats to do things. But in enterprises, you have specific people for specific things, and then again, uh, there are pros and cons of both, right? I mean,
Mm.
you have much flexibility in the startups, but there's a headache. You need to do more with limited resources. In enterprises, there are well defined roles, but again, there would be friction, there would be bureaucracy as well. Decisions are
Mm.
not taken that fast. I mean,
Right.
so, but again, if like we talked about the aligning the data strategy with business strategy, then having the data architecture and data governance and data management. So, like in some organization, data management and data governance, both functionalities could be one person would be doing or one team would be doing that, right?
Right.
And there would be a designers and architects, so the data architecture team. Then we have operational systems. In the middle, we have extracting the data, transforming the data, storing the data, loading it into the analytical system, and um, uh, so basically, as you can see, rules, if they are well defined, then it can be like a data engineer would be extracting the data, transforming the data, storing it, and then loading it to the analytical system. All these things would be done by the data engineers. On the analytical side of it, the data scientist and data analyst. So data analyst would be working on the building the dashboards and all, right?
Right.
And the data scientist would be basically uh, taking the use cases and doing the feasibility analysis or developing the POCs. And in some organization, data scientists would also be deploying the models in production. But in other organization, there would be dedicated machine learning engineer who would be deploying it. And so this is basically a kind of these are the major roles which
Right.
are part of the execution. And as I mentioned, on it's like uh, the undercurrents of data architecture, data governance, data management. So there can be data architects, data designers, um analytical leaders, uh, data stewards,
Right.
uh, data management professionals as well.
Right.
Uh, so these are the most of the roles that I've seen in the well-defined organizations.
Great. Great. Thanks, Ankit, for sharing your views about the composition of a data team and what would be the different roles which comprise of a data team to build a modern data platform. And it always starts with the business problem. That's pretty much understood. And then it boils down to the different ingestion patterns, storage patterns, the need, whether you need real. There's a huge difference between building something real time and near real time. You ask any customer, everybody wants real time, but 95% of the times they actually don't need it. So all those are the opportunities where somebody says that, okay, why the solution is costing so much. So these are some of the questions that do you really need real time systems? Because if you need to build those near real time or real time systems, you need to invest in technologies like Kafka and all, which in the end comes out to be expensive, right? If you don't need a Kubernetes based deployment solutions, why do you go for it? Can we build it simple? So that philosophy of keep it simple, right, is always something which I think it's a guard stick for any data architect to say that if I have to build a solution, let's build the solution at bias towards building it the simplest first, right? So great, I get it. So now let's address the elephant in the room. So I think any discussion today doesn't end without talking the impact of AI, especially in the sector of knowledge workers, which is even more, I would say, scary because this was the sector which was assumed to be that it won't be touched because it is intelligence, right? And people are, because people know coding, because people know, say, writing SQL, right? We have been, like, I think my career, your career has been a lot indebted to SQL. We whatever we did was because of this SQL and Python, these two languages, we were able to do most of the things. But now here is an entity which is coming here and say that, okay, you don't need people like you and me. It can write the code. It can magically build apps. I think yesterday I was doing said, okay, let me do some vibe coding. So I thought like, okay, let me take a couple of hours a stretch and try to code something. And I was able to code a React application. I haven't coded React ever, but I was able to get something and was able to get some idea what is this thing is doing. But then at the same time, it was also a realization that if everybody is able to build things like this, then what happens to the very engineers who actually built these solutions, this AI, right? How does the role of an established engineer, like people like you and me, changes? How does the role of a middle experienced engineer changes? And according to you, what's in it for freshers?
Okay. Um, so that's a nice question, I would say, and I keep thinking about it, and not a definite answer to that, but basically, yeah, I also have opinion because nobody has seen the future, but uh, uh, yeah, AI has its own capabilities. Like we can use Copilot, uh, which can write Python, SQL, and we can basically build or write code in any language.
Right,
But with that, um, uh, there are challenges as well. I mean, the more you give that power to the people who haven't coded, or maybe they don't know the best practices, and so there would be a lot of technical debt, and then
right,
that needs to be managed. And then because suppose earlier only few people could code, now everybody could code. So and so the imminent problem or the challenge that we have right now could be solved, but in the longer horizon, I mean, like the problems would emerge. And so basically, how I see that is that, yeah, lesser people may be required, and I mean, things can be done, can be optimized and done faster using AI. So right now, my view is that uh, we should be learning it and we should be utilizing it. And then, as a mid-level engineer, or maybe going to be an expert, we are expected to understand the nuances of how these tools works, what are their strength and limitations, and then basically taking a, a thoughtful decision about whether, I mean, where we can utilize it.
right.
So basically, what I've seen is that if you need a boilerplate code, then AI is, earlier we used to go to Stack Overflow or Google
Mm,
about that code and then modify it and use it.
yes.
So if I give some requirement to a Copilot or ChatGPT, it can give me a boilerplate code which I can utilize. And what I've seen is that there are five, six structured requirement. It can do good. If I increase the requirement, then it may, out of like 10, 12 requirements, it may miss one or two.
Yeah.
Then the testing becomes important, right? To
Yes.
know which requirement is not fulfilled, right?
Mm, mm,
And then what I've seen is that writing a fresh code using AI is easy, but maintaining it is a headache.
mm,
Uh, so once you have productionized it, you can't just uh, pick all the production code and put into the AI and say,
mm.
okay, this is the bug and resolve it.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
what it could do, that it can resolve that bug, but it can infuse some other,
Some other
because
code.
it doesn't know the overall requirement, right? You have just
Yes,
pushed the,
yes.
so basically, I mean, looking at right now, what I feel is that um, we should be basically the master of uh, the tool, and
Right.
maybe dictating what it needs to do.
Mm,
Because we are talking to the business, we understand the requirement, we are taking care of the existing systems. Uh,
right.
so that is my view right now. And for freshers, I think, yeah, it's basically because uh, earlier you took time to understand the nuances slowly, maybe in 2 3 years, 4 5 years, but that can that can be expedited. So
Right.
right now, at least, so basically what I've seen is that the AI works kind of it's an average uh, um, tool, which basically, if you are too good at your job, then
Right.
basically you can ask it to be your assistant, right?
Right.
You can
Correct.
tell what needs to be done. But if you are below average, or maybe a fresher, or don't know much about that particular technology, then it can act like a teacher, right?
Exactly.
So yeah, that's there. So I think we need to know how proficient we are, and then how in that way we can use AI. But again, given that hallucinations and
Hmm.
missing some of your instructions, not having the guardrails around it, then basically, as an expert, you can see, okay, it might do something like this, so I can just be prepared for it, right? But
Right.
as a junior engineer, you would accept whatever it is giving to you, right? So then, so those would be the challenges, and
Yeah.
that's where I think the senior engineers would be in play.
Got it. No, that makes a lot of sense. Because again, on one hand, there is this urge of there's a very strong urge that okay, here there is something which is producing code which is of very good quality. I mean, the code quality would be better than most of us because again, it has learned from the best of the coders around the world. The way it writes the code, the way it comments the code, everything would be very nice. But again, as you rightly said, that especially when it is, and that's why the word vibe, that okay, if I'm vibing through where I don't have a lot of things at stake, then I can really use this to kind of. And there is also, especially when it comes to learn, for example, if you ask me that today, and me being into upskilling, and in we have been building a lot of content for learning, but I strongly feel that the old school way of learning is not valid anymore. Especially if I ask you that today with AI, what would be your best strategy to learn if you have to learn something new, something which you have never seen before, or something which you would be really longing to learn for long time? And today, if you have to work with AI to learn that, how would you do that? Any thoughts you would share? Like how do you learn in the new world order?
So let me tell you how I used to learn, and then basically I can tell, how I do that these days, huh?
Right.
So earlier, I started with SQL and PLSQL, and then basically I learned R for data science, and then Python, and so then PySpark, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I used to do was, the same kind of requirements, with like I used to write for same particular requirement, what would I have written in SQL or PLSQL, and then how I need to do that in Pandas or Python,
Right.
or maybe in R, the similar kind of stuff. How could I do that, right?
Right.
So that was the way. I used to learn with the correlation, right? And with with AI now, things have become simpler, and basically, I would approach the similar way. And basically, generally, how I use AI or the LLM models to learn these days is, I'll start with very simple questions like, okay, what this thing is all about. I mean,
Hmm.
uh, why it is important, why I should be learning it, how it works, right?
Hmm.
And so this gives me a very high level view of, okay, uh, uh, what is this and why should I learn it out, and how it works on a high level. And then basically I'll um, keep digging into it.
Yeah.
Okay, it's like if I, and then I will see, okay, uh, I could remember, okay, in earlier language or technology, I used to do similar kind of thing. So I will give you a simple requirement to it. Okay, how would I do this thing in this
Hmm.
particular language or in
Yeah.
technology,
Hmm.
and then I would ask, okay, take care of the best practices as well. So
Hmm.
and then I will validate, okay, if I'm getting the response as intended. and then
Mm.
maybe I would give some already written code to AI and ask means like simplify it for me. I mean, in simple English, explain me what it is doing, and then basically so learning along the way. So now actually we need not to go anywhere. I mean, the tools are at our disposal, which basically is helpful. But again, it is distracting as well because
Right.
I mean, when you have too many options, then you are always confused. Like
Correct.
when I started learning machine learning, so there was only one course, right?
Yeah.
Coursera Machine Learning by Andrew Ng, and that was a decent one. I mean, that was the best that time, and still it is one of the, I mean, um,
Yes.
decent courses available. But now people have so many choices that they just keep downloading and keep accumulating all the stuff, but
Right.
they don't even have time to read it actually,
Very
right?
much.
Or maybe apply it. So another thing is generally what I have done earlier is that doing something about it. I mean, basically involving as many senses as I can to learn that thing. Like
Yeah.
uh, even now you can you might have seen the visual notes that I prepare, right? So
Yes.
that or maybe I will prepare a video or I would write on LinkedIn a post about it. So basically what happens is that uh, in order to do that I will read it, I will consume it, understand it, and then I will express it. And then when I'm going to express it, then I may go back and revisit things. Okay, I mean, because again, yeah, as Feynman has said that if you are going to explain it to a 5-year-old or your grandmother, then basically you will uh,
Yes.
then you will get different aspects of it. You will
Mm.
truly learn about it. So
True, true, true. So, and that's pretty interesting as well as scary, because what I see is, especially with freshers, the point is, as human beings, like if you are given something which, for example, with AI or with any kind of help, you have to solve a problem. Like if it can go back to ages where internet was not there, how people used to solve problems, right? They would be, say, going reading physical documents, physical
yeah, yeah,
books, right? They'll I remember that Java book and that C++ books which we used to have. Now I don't see any book in around me, right? Anything and everything I need, I have to just talk to this bot and it kind of quickly gives the outcome. But that becomes a problem, not for us, because we have lived the time where we had to manually hand code things, and that actually builds your muscle. But now, especially with freshers coming in, as they are kind of telling something, because see, it's all about yin and yang. The more context you have, the faster you can build solutions with AI, and that's where expertise has exponential effect on outcomes. And
right.
that's why if there is a fresher, it's like you give a toy to monkey, that monkey can do anything but not produce anything productive,
Meaningful. Yeah,
meaningful. And same thing happening with freshers. And the biggest challenge is that the moment you take away their AI, their even thinking ability has gone. So
yeah,
since
yeah.
it is
Mhm.
they're not spending time, or maybe because of this AI being able to throw outcomes at the flip of your hat, and it is basically taking away this entire motivation to go through the grind. And as people are not able to go through the grind, the moment the point comes that, okay, here is a problem related to, for example, if I ask somebody, here is a situation code, write the SQL code, people will produce the best of the code. But then when I say, okay, here is a problem which was done, which was solved for some use case, and there is a bug here, there is a problem here, people are not able to fix it because they are not at all aware about how this thing is working, right? So, and that is becoming a biggest challenge among people, that it's like a question, both ethical to freshers, that, okay, if you do not spend that additional hour, that additional effort to kind of see how this, and point, best thing is that AI can again help you. You
Yeah,
can say, here is an outcome, I don't understand anything about it, right? Act like a patient teacher and break things down and teach me step by step. It will do.
yeah, yeah,
But the problem with people is that they don't do it. They see that, okay, I got the outcome. Oh, we have in our education system, right? You got the answer. This everything is done, right?
yeah.
Nobody damn cares about what's the process or the outcome, or how you are taking this ahead for new thing. And that's a dangerous trend which is coming out. What's your point of view, Ankit, on this one?
Yeah, a very valid point, Amit. I mean, even when AI is available and even for a pretty new requirement and code, I believe uh, that when we are giving the requirement, then I think we should be uh, asking AI to my why it has taken a particular decision, right?
Exactly.
Why it has what each step is doing. Maybe I would say if I am learning a new language, I would say that comment each line why
Yeah,
you have written it. I mean, what is
exactly.
your thought process, right? And
Exactly.
I
Mm.
would um, go that way. So, and I think everyone should be doing it. If you are learning, I mean, if you are an expert, that's a different thing. But if you are learning, then you should be asking more. I mean, in order to understand the overall thought process and learn from it that, okay, in similar kind of situation, I need to take that decision. And then even you can also be grilling, okay, why you haven't you done this that way? I mean, and
Right.
then because once you understand how it is doing, then you may have some counterpoints as well, and
Right.
then you will get those answers as well why that is the best way. Or maybe it will say, okay, yeah, that's the point, valid point, and they should be done that way as well. So
True.
I mean,
True.
yeah.
And I think still the best way of learning it till today has always been to pick up a problem and solve. And
Yeah, yeah.
while you solve that problem, you actually end up learning. So not the other way where traditionally, okay, I'll sign up for a course which has like tons of videos, maybe I'll go through it, and then something will happen, somehow I'll learn, and then I'll build a project. But
Mhm.
what I have always seen is that starting with a problem which you really really care about, and building it, solving it, committing tons of errors, and you learn. And you have this tool which is kind of there 24 cross 7 assistant, a friend which is there to help you. It can be overly confident and wrong, but that exactly is the point where the human has to take the accountability, right? So keeping on the same lines, I think I also know that you are a lot into quantitative investing. And knowing you, I know that you would have definitely applied all the knowledge and skills which you have developed all these years, and especially with AI, you would have built some things. I would really want to know about your project in quant investing, what it is all about, what you have done with it, and what's the data AI essence to your project.
Okay, so uh, actually, I would explain the methodology of quant. I have named it quant vesting,
Yeah.
quantitative investing. So before that, I would like to cover that point that as you mentioned, that uh, generally in our projects we have constraints. Okay, tech stack is already defined, and we know
Hmm.
the problem statement, and we are solving it, right? So we may or may not use whatever we have learned recently, right? But generally, what I try to do is that this quant vesting application that I've built, I try to whatever I've learned, I see whether I can apply this to this application that I've built. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I have learned a lot, and because I tried to apply here. So that basically, I mean, you can understand that uh, I've read a lot of books on investing, maybe
Hmm.
100 plus. Uh, Not each and every chapter, but again on need basis. So basically, what
Hmm.
I did that I read like 5 7 books, which built my base around. I think I started my journey in 2021.
Right.
Before that, I when I learned machine learning in and I was doing good on Kaggle and all, I tried to predict the stock prices as well, just
Hmm.
for my learning. But it uh, because I fit the model on the historical data, it worked well on historical data, and then on the valuation data set, it was decent. But for the next day or the next month, it was horrible, right? And that time I learned that, I mean, not everything can be solved by machine learning. And then I was not aware of why it was not working, but now I have a view because I can give you like the high net worth individuals, right? The investment banks have a army of uh, the analysts, right? But the high net worth individuals, they they're not able to beat the HNIs, right?
Hmm.
And that is because the algorithms are greedy by nature, right? So
Hmm.
maybe I have designed something and it will see, okay, it will estimate the cost function, and it will see, okay, wherever it will get 5-7% of the process profit, it will exit there, right, if
Hmm.
it has
Hmm.
taken a position. But as a domain expert, or if I am into investing, I have understood the nuances. I have understood the business. I know its potential, and if I have uh, bought it at a cheaper level, then I know that it can go to 50%, and before that it can go zigzag, that is like that, right? So
Hmm.
algorithm can be actually, I mean, it can confuse the algorithm, but not the investor, right? Basically, I understood, okay, if I build an application, then it would be a mix of rule based plus
Hmm.
MLAI. So
Hmm.
when I started with that mindset in 2021, things started falling in place. So basically,
Hmm.
I have a proper methodology of quant vesting, where basically I earlier named it trade vesting. It was trading plus investing. So trading is basically buying low and selling higher, and
Hmm.
investing is basically, you are just putting your money, and you are not just buying and selling every day, and you are just
Yeah.
maybe 5-7 years. You are basically investing in the business, and you want
Right.
to grow with the business. That is
Right.
investing. But I thought that uh, initially I started, okay, I will analyze good businesses, and I
Hmm.
will put my money, and then I will wait for it to grow.
Hmm.
But in a sideways market, I could see that, okay, the stocks are moving like this, right? And I thought that if I'm invested in a good business, my money is not going anywhere, right? I
Hmm.
mean, I'm in safe hands, right? So can I try to do, I mean, time the market or the stock price um, in a range for that business? If I'm wrong, then again I'm in a good business. So I mean, I would not be booking loss, right?
Correct.
But if I'm able to anticipate a particular pattern, then I think I can book. And if I'm even correct 50% time, so the 50% of my amount would be long term investing, and 50% I would be maybe using for trading, right? So with that thought process, I started quant investing, and it is going well. So basically, over the years, I've defined a way where basically I do macroeconomic analysis.
Hmm.
In the Mint or the Economic Times, you might have seen the macro tracker. So
Right.
similar kind of thing I do on my platform. Then I do the industry analysis.
Hmm.
Then I do the business analysis, because
Hmm.
every industry has certain businesses, and
Right.
based on the macro, I could see that, okay, in the 5-7 years, which are the industries that are going to grow
Hmm.
uh, out of hundred of industries.
Right.
What are the 5, 7, 10 industries that
Hmm.
I should be hopeful for, right?
Right.
And then I do the business analysis, and then fundamental analysis, valuation analysis, and then the technical analysis. So
Right.
it's a 6-step process. And then I use the quantitative analysis, ML, AI, LLM on need basis on each of the step. So basically,
Hmm.
I'm controlling the whole flow, and I am utilizing the technology and tools in the middle to ease out my work. So that's
Right.
how I'm.
Right. Nice. Nice. So, and very quickly, what is the technology stack you have kept for your solution?
So basically it's not a product. It's basically because I am the only user. So it's
Hmm.
more of a I mean, it's more of a framework, and
Hmm.
everything is on GitHub only. I mean, it's
Okay.
all on Jupyter Notebook, not
Okay.
notebooks.
All local.
So
Yeah.
maybe more than a dozen of Jupyter notebooks I have.
Hmm.
And so yeah, I mean, so each notebook does a specific thing, and then I save, I mean, whatever analysis I do, I save it in CSVs, because
Understood.
data,
Yeah.
and data is not that huge. I mean,
Got it.
I need not to basically, like, Yahoo Finance have all the historical stock price movement. They are
Right.
already storing it, so why should I separately store, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
would keep only the whatever I care, only that
Right.
thing. And
Right.
I thought that I would build a data store or something, but
Hmm.
when I saw that, I mean, I just need to basically store today's picture only. not the
Right.
all the historical data, because that is already available in raw form anywhere. So
Right.
yeah,
Right.
so
Right. Awesome, awesome. So I think that solving a problem is always one of the best motivations you have to like keep up with the upcoming skills. Another very quick question. So have you also experimented with creating the agents, right? The this agentic AI. So I know you definitely would be building something to solve the problems, but is there anything which you would still call agentic, or you would say no, no, that's still just bunch of
I
functions?
haven't actually, to be honest, Miss, like I've used LLM, and I
Hmm.
used LLM for basically a kind of business analysis. So
Hmm.
basically, I mean, when so if we look at the overall flow, I mean, I can do quantitative analysis, but there are few things where we can't quantify everything. Like
Hmm.
the if you say that what is the brand value of Hindustan Unilever compared to ITC. So
Hmm.
basically, you can have your own view. Both are good companies, but you can't quantify. Okay, this is uh, 80, this is 90, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe based on your opinion, you can say ITC is better than HUL or
Yeah.
vice versa, right?
Yeah.
So that is the kind of qualitative analysis.
Hmm.
Similarly, um, business analysis. Basically, I mean, if you want to do a business analysis of a particular company,
Right.
financial analysis is different, but
Hmm.
for a business analysis, you need to go to their business or maybe a website or maybe their factory and see what
Hmm.
products they are building, what services they are offering, who
Hmm.
are their competitors, and what is the
Hmm.
public perception of what is the quality of the product and services and all. So all
Hmm.
this is basically you can't just feed in the data and say, okay, I've done the business
Yeah.
analysis of that
Yeah.
company, right?
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
basically, again, it's a qualitative and subjective analysis. So what I did, I used LLM for, I built a kind of methodology. Okay, for a business analysis, I would look for the management quality,
Hmm.
the business quality, and the future prospect.
Yeah.
I will have these three pillars to analyze, right?
True.
And basically, I baselined it. I gave it some examples, the LLM, that okay, this kind of company should be 4 out of 5. This
Yeah.
should be 3 out of 5. So, and now what I do is I give that, I train that LLM, that particular session to
Hmm.
analyze the business. And
True.
now I just pass the symbol of that company, and it gives me the whole analysis based on those parameters. And
Understood.
I basically then I use those metrics in my overall framework.
Awesome.
So that's I've done. For agentic, yeah, I mean, see, agentic AI is good, but it is going to have challenges as well.
Hmm.
Uh, I can tell you why. Because in data engineering, uh, we everything is quite deterministic in nature.
Yeah.
Basically, like uh, output from one function to another
Yeah.
is quite definite based on certain conditions, and then uh, uh, another component is using it as an input. So whole ETL pipeline like work like that.
Yes.
All the there are all modules are deterministic. They know what they are getting in and what they are
Exactly.
getting out, right?
Exactly.
Still,
Yeah.
data engineering is very complex.
Hmm.
Maintaining the data pipeline is very complex, right?
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
not an easy job, right? Now compare this to agentic pipelines. That
Right.
the agent you have in parallel and in sequence, many agents are there, and they are probabilistic, right?
Correct.
They are taking decisions one point here and there, it can give any output, right? Now,
True.
how are you going to guardrail it? How you are going to control it? And how you can anticipate what's going to happen, right?
Hmm.
So either you work in a very constrained environment where, or very regulated environment there where you know all the parameters can't go beyond a particular range, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Otherwise, it is going to be a headache. I mean, I've written about it. I've
Yeah.
prepared visual notes about it. They are
Yeah.
comparing the data pipelines with agentic pipelines, and where the problems I see.
Right.
So it's, I mean, people are very excited about it, and in certain conditions, it may be beneficial. But I mean, it has a lot of challenges, so it can't be a vanilla implementation everywhere.
I think so because see the whole basis, the very basis of agentic pipelines is probabilistic decision making. So if there is anything which is probabilistic, for example, human decision making is probabilistic. It is not deterministic. We say now, depending upon the situation, I will be answering it. That is probabilistic. But as you rightly said, most of the engineering problems are deterministic. There is an if, there is an else. If this happens, this will happen. So I think the best of the solution will be a mix of both, where to be able to identify where first of all doing the impact assessment, the risk assessment. So if there is a risk assessment is high, you would really not want to implement an agentic or a probabilistic solution. Maybe you do two or three extra if else loops if it gets your job done. But yeah, if there is anything else, and especially say being able to produce, being able to generate is just one of the use cases of this AI. Summarizing is another use case, and translating is use case. There are many ways where this can be useful in this entire workflow without depending on only the probabilistic nature of these tools. So this is what even I feel. But I think it's very early stages, and I think the only way to discover the right solution is to keep trying it.
Yeah,
So
right.
yeah, so I think exciting times, and I look forward to people, especially working professionals, not to get disheartened. I believe that with all these things happening, I think many of the big shots are saying don't learn to code, but I believe is that you should it should be learning code even more because
Yeah, yeah.
it helps you to think. It teaches you how to think logically, and it gives you that superpower to build things which you always wanted to. Right?
Definitely. I mean, you have got an assistant who knows maybe in certain scenario code better than you. So basically, if you want to make use of that assistant,
Exactly.
then you should know better actually.
I think there is a lot for us also to unlearn. I find it at times very difficult that I keep going to the older ways of doing things. But I think that's the beauty of being in this data and AI domain is that you have to always keep unlearning new old things and learning new things. So thanks a lot, Ankit, for your time and sharing your vast experience of your work experience about your journey in data and AI and your personal project. I wish you all the best for your project. And I think your visual notes are amazing. A very quick refresher for concepts, and I recommend to people that you do spend some time. It appears like a comic strip. You just read through, in like in one view, you're getting a very quick understanding. And at times, I also use some of your notes just to show people, show to my team that how should you create very quick mind maps. It appears like a mind map. So thanks a lot for all the great work you're doing, Ankit, and thanks a lot for connecting and sharing your thoughts today.
Same here, Amit. Yeah, it was really a nice interaction, and thanks for inviting me.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Take care and bye
Yeah,
for now.
yeah. Bye.
Bye.